This story, titled "My Brother Asked Me to Pay Off His Mortgage After Years of Mocking My Hard Work. I Finally Said No," is about resilience, self-respect, and the moment when you decide to stand up for yourself, even against family. Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm 33 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I work as a nurse, and if there's one thing my job has taught me, it's the value of hard work and dedication. My life hasn't always been easy, but I've made it a point to build a stable, fulfilling life for myself. Unfortunately, not everyone in my family has always respected that. This story revolves around my older brother, Matt. Growing up, we were polar opposites. Matt was the fun, outgoing, life-of-the-party type, while I was the quiet, studious one. Our parents doted on Matt, always excusing his wild behavior as boys will be boys. Meanwhile, I was expected to stay out of trouble and focus on being the responsible one. For years, I didn't mind being in Matt's shadow. He was my big brother, and I looked up to him despite his flaws. But as we grew older, our differences became harder to ignore. Matt never seemed to take life seriously. While I worked part-time jobs to save for college, he spent his weekends partying. While I studied for exams, he racked up credit card debt buying things he didn't need. It wasn't until a few years ago, though, that I realized just how little respect Matt had for me or my hard work. One Thanksgiving, we were all gathered at our parents' house, catching up over dinner. Matt had just bought a new car, a flashy sports car that I knew he couldn't afford. I casually asked him how he managed it, and he laughed. "Financing, of course," he said. "Why worry about saving when you can just pay for it later?" I raised an eyebrow. "But what about your mortgage? I thought you were already struggling with that." Matt smirked, waving off my concern. "Oh, come on, Amanda. Don't be such a buzzkill. Not everyone wants to live like a miser." His words stung. I had worked tirelessly to build a modest but stable life for myself, and here he was mocking me for it. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what I did, Matt would never take me seriously. Fast forward to last year, when things came to a head. Matt had hit a rough patch financially, again. His mortgage payments were piling up, and he was on the verge of losing his house. One evening, he called me out of the blue. "Hey, sis," he began, his tone unusually cheerful. "I've been thinking, you're doing pretty well for yourself, right?" I hesitated, sensing where this was going. "I'm doing okay," I replied cautiously. "Why?" "Well," he said, dragging out the word, "I could really use a little help. Things have been tight lately, and I'm behind on my mortgage. I was hoping you could help me pay it off. Just this once." My stomach sank. "Pay off your mortgage?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "Matt, that's a huge ask." "It's not that big of a deal," he said, brushing off my concern. "You've always been good with money. I know you can afford it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After years of being mocked for my frugality and hard work, Matt was now turning to me for a bailout. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Matt, I'm sorry you're struggling, but I can't pay off your mortgage. That's not something I can take on." His tone shifted immediately. "Come on, Amanda. Don't be like that. We're family. You know I'd do the same for you." I almost laughed at the absurdity of his words. Matt had never once offered to help me, not when I was saving for college, not when I was struggling to pay off my student loans, and certainly not when I was working double shifts to make ends meet. "I'm sorry, Matt," I said firmly, "but this isn't something I can do." He didn't take it well. "Wow," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I guess all that hard work really turned you into a selfish person, huh?" That conversation marked a turning point for me. For years, I had put up with Matt's disrespect and entitlement, but this was the first time I truly stood my ground. Still, it wasn't easy. After our call, Matt went on a campaign to guilt me into changing my mind. He called our parents, who immediately tried to intervene. "Amanda, can't you help your brother out?" my mom pleaded. "He's going through such a hard time." "Mom," I replied, "Matt has been going through a hard time for as long as I can remember. He's made poor choices, and it's not my responsibility to fix them." My dad was more blunt. "You're being selfish," he said. "Family helps family, no matter what." Their words hurt, but I knew I was doing the right thing. Over the next few weeks, I tried to focus on my own life, but the tension with my family weighed heavily on me. Matt continued to send passive-aggressive texts, accusing me of abandoning him. Our parents sided with him, insisting that I was being unreasonable. But no matter how much pressure they put on me, I refused to give in. I had spent years working hard to build a stable life, and I wasn't about to jeopardize it for someone who had never taken responsibility for his own actions. As the weeks went on, the tension in my family only grew. My brother Matt made it his mission to portray me as the villain in every family conversation. He'd twist the story, telling anyone who would listen that I was selfish, heartless, and more concerned about my savings than my own family. At first, it stung. Hearing those accusations from someone I had once looked up to as my big brother made me question myself. Was I being too harsh? Should I just give in to keep the peace? But every time I felt doubt creeping in, I reminded myself of one simple truth. Matt's financial problems were not my responsibility. My parents, unfortunately, weren't helping. Every phone call with them turned into a guilt trip. "Your brother needs you," my mom would say. "You have the means to help, and yet you're choosing not to. Do you really want to see him lose his house?" "Mom," I replied one evening, "I didn't choose this. Matt made his own choices, spending beyond his means, ignoring his responsibilities. I can't be the one to bail him out every time he gets into trouble. That's not fair to me." But my words fell on deaf ears. My parents were so wrapped up in protecting Matt from the consequences of his actions that they couldn't see the toll it was taking on me. One particularly frustrating moment came during a family dinner. I had reluctantly agreed to attend, hoping to ease the tension, but it quickly turned into a full-blown intervention. "Why are you being so stubborn, Amanda?" Matt said, his voice dripping with frustration. "It's not like I'm asking for a kidney. It's just money." "Just money?" I shot back, my voice firm. "Matt, you've spent years mocking me for being careful with my finances. You've called me boring, uptight, and cheap. And now that you're in trouble, you expect me to hand over everything I've worked for without question?" The room fell silent. I could see my parents exchanging uneasy glances, but Matt wasn't done. "Maybe if you weren't so selfish, you'd understand what it means to help family," he said. That was the breaking point for me. I stood up, pushing my chair back with more force than I intended. "You know what, Matt? I'm done feeling guilty for saying no. I've spent my entire life watching you make bad decisions, and I've spent enough time cleaning up the mess. If that makes me selfish, so be it." With that, I grabbed my coat and left. Walking out of that dinner felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time, I wasn't letting Matt or anyone else manipulate me into doubting my worth or my choices. The weeks that followed were a turning point. I focused on setting boundaries with my family, refusing to engage in conversations about Matt's financial troubles. Whenever my parents brought it up, I calmly but firmly reminded them that I wasn't going to change my decision. "Mom, Dad," I said during one call, "I love you, but this constant guilt tripping has to stop. I've worked hard to build a stable life for myself, and I won't jeopardize that because Matt refuses to take responsibility for his actions. If you can't respect my decision, we'll need to take a step back." To my surprise, that seemed to resonate with them, at least a little. While they didn't fully agree with me, they began to ease up on the pressure, realizing that I wasn't going to budge. As for Matt, he continued to lash out, but his efforts started to lose their impact. I stopped responding to his passive-aggressive texts and ignored his attempts to drag me into arguments. I knew I couldn't change his behavior, but I could control how much access he had to me. A few months later, I heard through a mutual friend that Matt had finally started taking steps to fix his situation. He had sold his sports car, downsized his lifestyle, and taken on a second job to catch up on his mortgage payments. While I didn't expect an apology from him, I couldn't help but feel a small sense of relief. Maybe this experience had finally taught him the importance of responsibility. One day, completely out of the blue, Matt called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey, Amanda," he said, his voice unusually subdued. "I just wanted to say, I know I've been a jerk lately. I didn't mean to put all that pressure on you. I guess I was just panicking and didn't know what else to do." His words caught me off guard. I had spent so long bracing myself for his next attack that I wasn't prepared for an olive branch. "Thank you for saying that, Matt," I replied. "I know things have been tough for you, but I need you to understand that I can't always be the one to fix things. I hope this experience has taught you to take responsibility for yourself." "It has," he admitted. "I'm trying to do better." While his apology didn't erase the hurt he had caused, It felt like a step in the right direction. Looking back, I'm proud of how I handled the situation. Saying no to Matt wasn't just about protecting my finances. It was about standing up for myself and refusing to let anyone take advantage of my kindness. It taught me that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. Today, my relationship with Matt is still a work in progress, but it's much healthier than it used to be. He's started to take responsibility for his actions, and while we'll probably never be as close as we once were, I'm okay with that. As for my parents, they've begun to see things from my perspective. While they still have a soft spot for Matt, they've stopped pressuring me to bail him out. It's not a perfect situation, but it's one I can live with. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to prioritize your own well-being before you can truly help others. And sometimes, helping someone means letting them face the consequences of their choices. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member or say no to an unreasonable request? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Thank you for being part of this conversation and supporting the channel.